Hello, friends. If you're curious about the movie Raging Fire 2021, you're in the perfect place. Don't forget to give this video a quick like, it really helps us out. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to stay updated on all the latest movie deep dives. Let's jump right in. There are action films that thrill, and then there are action films that ignite something deep inside. Movies that do not just entertain but pulse with energy, emotion, and an intensity that lingers long after the credits roll. Raging Fire 2021 is one of those films. A testament to the legacy of the late Benny Chan, a director known for his hard-hitting, emotionally charged storytelling, this film is more than just a showcase of explosive action sequences. It is a story of loyalty, betrayal, and justice, told with a level of skill and precision that elevates it above the typical action fare. At its core, Raging Fire is a high-octane, adrenaline-fueled crime thriller that delves into the complexities of duty and vengeance. It follows Chung Sung-bong, a dedicated and honorable cop who has spent years upholding the law with unwavering integrity. Played by the legendary Donnie Yen, Chung is a man driven by his sense of justice, but in a city where corruption seeps into the cracks of the system, even the strongest moral compass can be challenged. And challenge comes in the form of Yao Kong-ngo, a former protege turned relentless adversary, played with chilling brilliance by Nicholas Tsay. Yao was once a promising officer, a man who believed in the same ideals as Chung, but circumstances and betrayals pushed him over the edge. Now, he leads a crew of ex-cops, men who were once the system's enforcers but now seek retribution against the very institution that discarded them. What unfolds is not just a battle of bullets and fists but a battle of ideologies, a war between men who once fought for the same cause but now stand on opposite sides of the law. From the moment the film begins, the tension is palpable. The first act wastes no time in establishing Chung's unwavering dedication to his job. He is the type of officer who does not bend to pressure, who refuses to be compromised, no matter the cost. His unwavering stance, however, has made him enemies, not just on the streets but within the very organization he serves. Corruption lurks in the background, and those who refuse to play by its rules find themselves isolated. The narrative takes a sharp turn when a daring, meticulously executed heist shakes the city. A group of masked criminals, operating with military precision, ambush a police operation, leaving chaos in their wake. The sequence is nothing short of breathtaking. Gunfire, expertly choreographed hand-to-hand combat, and a sense of urgency that keeps the audience on edge. But this is not just any criminal gang. As the dust settles and investigations unfold, Chung realizes the horrifying truth. These attackers are not ordinary criminals. They are men he once called brothers. What follows is a relentless game of cat and mouse, a hunt that takes Chung through the neon-lit streets of Hong Kong, the dimly lit corridors of crime syndicates, and the dangerous crossroads where law and revenge collide. Each confrontation between Chung and Yao is charged with unspoken history, with the weight of past betrayals hanging in the air. They are not just fighting for survival, they are fighting for the beliefs that define them. The action in Raging Fire is ferocious, unfiltered, and masterfully executed. Donnie Yen, known for his legendary martial arts prowess, delivers some of the most bone-crunching, fluid fight sequences of his career. Whether it is an alleyway brawl where every strike lands with devastating impact or a high-speed chase that turns the streets into a battlefield, the film never lets up. The choreography is raw and real, emphasizing weight, movement, and consequence. But the action, as thrilling as it is, never overshadows the emotional core of the film. As the story unfolds, flashbacks reveal the past relationship between Chung and Yao. Once mentor and student, their bond was built on mutual respect, on shared ideals. But the system they dedicated their lives to failed them in different ways. While Chung chose to endure, to fight from within, Yao allowed the bitterness of betrayal to consume him. His transformation into a ruthless leader of a criminal empire is not just a descent into villainy. It is a manifestation of years of resentment, a response to a world that turned its back on him. The tension between the two builds with each encounter, each battle pushing them closer to an inevitable final confrontation. And when that moment arrives, it is not just about who is stronger, faster, or better trained. It is about who is right. But justice is not always black and white. The deeper Chung delves into Yao's world, the more he realizes that his former brother-in-arms is not fighting for power, greed, or chaos. He is fighting for recognition, for acknowledgement that the system he once served turned him into what he is. And this is what makes Raging Fire stand apart from typical action films. It does not paint its antagonist as a simple villain. Yao is not evil. He is the result of a world that created him. And so, as the film races toward its electrifying climax, the audience is left questioning not just who will survive, but what justice truly means. Does it lie in unwavering loyalty to a flawed system? Or does it lie in rebellion against it? With Raging Fire, Benny Chan delivers a film that is as intelligent as it is explosive, as emotionally gripping as it is relentlessly thrilling. It is a film that respects its audience, trusting them to engage with the deeper themes beneath the spectacle. It is not just a cops and robbers story. It is a story about the fine line between heroism and vengeance, about the choices that define us, and about the fire that burns within those who refuse to back down. For action lovers, for fans of gripping crime thrillers, and for anyone who appreciates cinema that does not just entertain but challenges, Raging Fire is an absolute must-watch. It is a film that reminds us why we love this genre, why stories of justice and betrayal continue to captivate us, and why, sometimes, the most dangerous battles are not the ones fought with bullets, but the ones fought within the soul. And the final question remains. In a world where justice is not always fair, where the past refuses to stay buried, and where loyalty can turn into the sharpest blade, who will be left standing when the fire burns out? The city hums with an undercurrent of tension, a place where the line between justice and corruption blurs with every passing moment. For those who wear the badge, upholding the law is not just about chasing down criminals, it is about fighting against a system that often works against them. In this world, Chung Sung-bong, a decorated officer known for his unwavering sense of duty, moves through the streets of Hong Kong like a man on a mission. He does not compromise, does not waver. The criminals fear him. His colleagues respect him. And those who play by their own rules resent him. A police operation is underway, one that Chung has meticulously prepared for. It is a high-stakes drug bust, the kind of mission that demands precision, where one mistake could mean bodies on the ground. As his team moves in, there is a sense that something is off. The criminals seem prepared, almost waiting for them. And then, chaos. Explosions rip through the air. A planned arrest turns into a bloodbath. A police operation is underway, one that Chung has meticulously prepared for. It is a high-stakes drug bust, the kind of mission that demands precision, where one mistake could mean bodies on the ground. As his team moves in, there is a sense that something is off. The criminals seem prepared, almost waiting for them. And then, chaos. Explosions rip through the air. A planned arrest turns into a bloodbath. The officers are ambushed by an unknown enemy, a group that moves with chilling efficiency. These are not street thugs. They are professionals, operating with the kind of discipline and strategy that should not belong to the underworld. In the aftermath, the bodies of fallen officers litter the scene, their weapons barely drawn before they were taken down. Survivors are left shaken. But for Chung, there is something even more disturbing than the violence itself, the faces behind the masks. When he catches a glimpse of the attackers through the haze of gunfire, his breath stills. These are not ordinary criminals. They are men he once knew. As the city reels from the attack, the authorities demand answers. Who could have orchestrated such a precise strike against law enforcement? Who would have the skill, the inside knowledge, to turn the tables so completely? The answer comes in the form of a name that Chung has not spoken in years, Yao Kong-ngo. The revelation sends a ripple of unease through the police force. Yao was once an officer, a rising star in the department. He was intelligent, fearless, and loyal to the mission. He and Chung had fought side by side, taken down criminals together, shared drinks after long shifts. There was a time when Chung had even seen him as a younger version of himself, a man who believed in justice. But that was a lifetime ago. Now, Yao is something else entirely. Chung is pulled into an investigation that forces him to confront the past, to untangle the threads of how Yao, once an ally, became an enemy. Through flashbacks, the film reveals their shared history. Yao and a group of young officers were once part of a highly trained special operations unit, led by Chung. They were a brotherhood, bonded by the dangers they faced together. But then, something went wrong. During a critical operation, a decision was made, one that resulted in Yao and his team being betrayed by the very institution they served. Corruption ran deep in the department, and Yao's team became scapegoats. They were discarded, abandoned, left to rot while higher-ups washed their hands of the consequences. Chung, though uninvolved in the betrayal, did not fight for them. He followed the law, trusted the system. And in doing so, he lost them forever. But Yao did not forget. Years later, he has returned, not as a man seeking redemption, but as a force of vengeance. He leads a group of ex-officers, men who were once trained to protect, now using those same skills to dismantle the very system that turned its back on them. They are not just criminals. They are warriors on a mission, and their target is clear: the people who wronged them, the ones who left them to suffer. And Chung is one of them. With the city on edge and the police force shaken, Chung knows that Yao is not finished. He is testing them, making a statement. There will be more attacks, more casualties, and the only way to stop him is to step into his world, to understand the man he has become. Chung begins hunting Yao the way he would any criminal, but it quickly becomes apparent that this is not an ordinary pursuit. Yao is always ahead, always anticipating his every move. Every lead ends in a dead end. Every informant is too afraid to speak. It is a game of chess, and Yao is playing it masterfully. But then, a breakthrough. One of Yao's former allies, a man who has grown uneasy with the escalating violence, reaches out. He offers a meeting, claiming that he can give Chung the information he needs to stop Yao before the next attack. Chung, despite knowing the risks, takes the chance. The meeting is set in an abandoned warehouse, the kind of place where ghosts of the past seem to linger in the air. As Chung steps inside, gun in hand, the tension is suffocating. Shadows shift. Footsteps echo. And then, gunfire. It is an ambush. Yao was always one step ahead. The man Chung came to meet is already dead, a warning carved into his flesh. And standing in the dim light, gun in hand, is Yao himself. The two men lock eyes. For a moment, there is nothing but silence between them. A silent acknowledgement of what once was, and what now is. And then the fight begins. It is brutal, bone-crushingly raw, a battle between two men who know each other's strengths and weaknesses like the back of their hands. Every punch thrown is personal. Every block is a reminder of the years they spent training together. It is not just a fight, it is a conversation, spoken through fists and kicks, through gritted teeth and bruised knuckles. Chung barely escapes with his life. But as he stumbles into the night, bloodied and breathless, one thing becomes painfully clear: this is only the beginning. Yao is not just seeking revenge. He is declaring war. The city is on edge. After the ambush, after the realization that Yao Kong Ngo is not just seeking vengeance but waging a war, Chung Sungbong knows that time is slipping away. Every move he makes is anticipated. Every attempt to outmaneuver his former brother-in-arms is countered with ruthless efficiency. Yao is not just acting alone. His crew, ex-officers trained in police tactics, are methodical, strategic, and dangerously motivated. And with each attack, their message becomes clearer. We are not criminals, we are the reckoning. Chung is not a man who backs down, but even he begins to question whether this is a battle he can win. Yao's network runs deep. Every lead turns into a dead end. Every potential ally is either compromised or unwilling to go against him. Within the police force, Cracks begin to show. Officers are scared. Some quietly sympathize with Yao's crusade, believing that the system is as corrupt as he claims. Others doubt Cheng, whispering that perhaps he is too close to the enemy to stop him. But then, a break in the case. A name surfaces, one that could turn the tide. A corrupt government official, once tied to the scandal that destroyed Yao's team, is about to go public with a statement, revealing the truth behind what happened all those years ago. If this man speaks, it could expose the corruption at the highest levels. It could justify everything Yao has done. It could change everything. And Yao will not let that happen. As the official is placed under heavy police protection, Cheng knows what is coming next. Yao will make a move, and this time it will not be a message. It will be an execution. The sequence that follows is pure chaos, a brutal high-stakes attack on the convoy transporting the official to safety. The tension builds as armored vehicles move through the city, flanked by officers who know they are being watched. And then, in an instant, the assault begins. Explosions tear through the streets. Bullets rain down. Yao's crew, disguised as tactical units, strike with surgical precision, dismantling the police defenses with terrifying efficiency. What was supposed to be a secure transfer turns into a war zone, with Cheng caught in the middle. But this time, he is ready. Through pure grit and experience, Cheng fights his way through the chaos, dodging gunfire, engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat, refusing to let Yao win. The two finally come face to face amidst the carnage, locked in a deadly struggle where neither man holds back. And then, a gunshot. For the first time, Yao falters. Not from weakness, but from hesitation. He has Cheng at gunpoint, his finger tight on the trigger, but something in his eyes flickers. A memory. A hesitation. For just a fraction of a second, the past catches up to him. And in that moment, the police reinforcements arrive. The fight is over. Or so it seems. Yao is captured, his crew scattered. The city exhales. The war that has turned the streets into a battleground is finally at its end. But something is not right. Cheng, battered and bleeding, looks at Yao, sees the stillness in his face, the lack of panic. And then it clicks, this was never about escaping. Yao planned for this. That night, as he sits in the heavily guarded holding cell, a simultaneous series of explosions detonate across the city. His final message. His final act. While the world believed he had been taken down, he had already set his final move in motion. Corrupt officials, officers who turned their backs on him, powerful men who thought they were safe, all of them fall. The truth is finally out. And yet, for Yao, there is no victory. Cheng stands outside the cell, looking at the man he once called a friend, now reduced to a prisoner, a warrior without a battlefield. They do not speak, because there is nothing left to say. The fight is over. But at what cost? The city moves on, scars left behind from a war that never should have happened. And as Cheng walks away, leaving Yao to his fate, the weight of everything that has transpired settles in. There are no winners in a battle like this. There never were. And so, the fire burns out. Cheng Sungbong moves through the streets of Hong Kong like a shadow, a man whose presence commands respect, yet whose existence is defined by a relentless pursuit of justice. He is not a hero in the traditional sense, nor is he a man who seeks validation for his actions. He does not waver, does not flinch in the face of adversity. But beneath the hardened exterior, beneath the unwavering sense of duty, there is something deeper, something that makes him more than just a cop chasing criminals. He is a man burdened by his past, by choices that have defined not just his career, but his very identity. Cheng is the kind of officer who believes that the law is sacred, that justice, no matter how flawed the system, must be upheld. He has spent his life hunting criminals, locking away those who believe they can operate outside the law. He has sacrificed relationships, personal happiness, and any semblance of normalcy in the name of duty. And for the most part, he has accepted this as his path. But then Yao Kongngyo returns. And suddenly, the world he has built for himself begins to crack. The relationship between Chung and Yao is at the heart of Raging Fire. It is not simply a cop chasing a criminal. It is a reckoning, a confrontation between two men who once shared the same ideals but found themselves walking opposite paths. Yao was not always a villain. He was once a dedicated officer, one of the best, a man Chung saw potential in. He was bright, ambitious, and willing to put everything on the line for the mission. But that was before the betrayal, before the system they believed in turned its back on him. Yao's transformation is one of tragedy, not just in what he becomes, but in the way he holds onto the idea of justice, even as he abandons the methods that once defined it. He is not a mindless villain. He is a man who once fought for the same cause as Chung, but when the walls closed in on him, when those in power decided he was expendable, he did what the system taught him to do. He fought back. But his war is not about personal revenge. It is about proving a point. He does not just want to take down those who betrayed him. He wants to expose the hypocrisy of the entire system. And this is what makes him so dangerous. Where Chung fights to uphold the law, Yao fights to tear it down. But the deeper Chung hunts Yao, the more he realizes that there is a part of him that understands. A part of him that wonders, if the system had turned its back on him, would he have ended up the same? The film plays with this dynamic beautifully, layering every confrontation between them with years of unspoken history, of moments that exist in the space between words. But they are not the only ones caught in this war. Yao's crew is more than just a group of criminals. They are men who were once officers, men who believed in the badge until they were discarded like pawns in a game far larger than them. Each of them carries the scars of betrayal, and their loyalty to Yao is not just about revenge, it is about purpose. In their eyes, Yao is the only leader who has not abandoned them. They do not see themselves as villains. They see themselves as soldiers fighting for a truth the world refuses to acknowledge. This is what makes their encounters with the police so brutal. They know the system. They know how their former colleagues think, how they react. They use their training against them, turning every battle into a game of strategy rather than just brute force. And in doing so, they force Chung and his team to face an uncomfortable reality. They are not hunting common criminals. They are hunting men who were once just like them. Among Yao's crew, there are those who question, those who hesitate, but ultimately, they are bound by their shared history. It is this unity that makes them formidable, and it is this unity that makes their downfall so tragic. Because despite everything, despite the war they wage, there is an unshakable truth that lingers over them. They never wanted to be criminals. They wanted justice. And when they were denied it, they chose the only path they believed was left. The supporting characters play vital roles in shaping the narrative. Within the police force, there are those who see Chung as a relic of an era long gone, a man clinging to ideals that no longer fit the world they operate in. Others respect him but question whether his pursuit of Yao is personal rather than professional. And then there are those who secretly sympathize with Yao, officers who know the corruption runs deep but have neither the courage nor the power to fight against it. This divide within the force adds another layer to the story, as it is not just a war between cops and criminals, it is a war within the institution itself. When the system that is supposed to uphold justice begins to crumble from within, when those who enforce the law no longer believe in it, what is left? By the time the film reaches its climax, the battle between Chung and Yao is no longer about arresting a criminal or stopping a terrorist. It is about ideology. It is about proving which path is right, which method of justice holds the most weight. Their final confrontation is not just about survival. It is about vindication. And yet, even as they fight, there is no true victory to be had. Because in the end, both men have already lost. Chung, despite winning the physical battle, is left questioning everything. The truth about corruption is exposed, but at what cost? The city has been shaken, lives have been lost, and the system remains flawed. Yao, even in defeat, remains unbroken. He has made his statement, even if it cost him everything. And in that final moment, as Chung looks at the man he once called a brother, there is no celebration, only the heavy weight of everything that has transpired. And so, the question lingers. Did justice truly prevail? Or did the fire that Yao started reveal something far more unsettling, that sometimes the only way to expose the truth is to burn everything down? The making of Raging Fire was more than just another action movie production. It was a journey filled with unforeseen challenges, remarkable dedication, and deeply personal stakes. This was not simply a film about bullets flying and fists clashing. It was a story that carried the weight of a legacy, a film that honored one of Hong Kong cinema's most revered filmmakers, Benny Chan. But beyond the explosive action sequences and gripping performances, the journey behind the scenes was filled with unusual occurrences, fascinating details, and the kind of unexpected moments that make filmmaking an adventure in itself. The most poignant fact about Raging Fire is that it stands as Benny Chan's final directorial work. A veteran filmmaker known for his mastery of action storytelling, Chan had crafted some of Hong Kong's most beloved films over the years. But as production on Raging Fire neared completion, tragedy struck. Benny Chan passed away in August 2020 after a battle with cancer. The news sent shockwaves through the industry, leaving cast and crew devastated. The film suddenly became more than just another project. It became a tribute, a final testament to a director who had spent his life shaping the genre. In an unusual turn of events, Donnie Yen took it upon himself to oversee parts of the post-production process to ensure that Benny Chan's vision remained intact. Yen, a legend in his own right, did not take on this responsibility lightly. He had worked with Chan before and understood the intricacies of his style. Along with key members of the crew, Yen helped oversee editing, sound design, and final touches, ensuring that the film remained true to Chan's original vision. In many ways, Raging Fire became a film shaped not only by its director but by those who loved and respected him. One of the most unexpected challenges came from the intensity of the film's action sequences. While Donnie Yen is known worldwide for his martial arts prowess, Nicholas Tsai, playing Yao Kong Ngo, had to undergo intense physical training to match the level of combat required for his role. Tsai, who started his career as a singer before transitioning into acting, had previously performed his own stunts in action films, but Raging Fire demanded an entirely new level of commitment. He trained for months in hand-to-hand combat, weapons handling, and physical endurance, preparing himself for the ferocious, bone-crushing fight scenes against Yen, but Tsai's dedication to authenticity did not stop at training. In one of the film's most brutal fight sequences, where Chung and Yao face off in an abandoned building, the physicality was so intense that Tsai accidentally broke one of Donnie Yen's ribs during filming. At first, Yen dismissed the pain as a minor injury, continuing with the scene as if nothing had happened. But after wrapping the shot, he realized that the pain was getting worse. A medical check confirmed the fracture. Yet, in true martial arts action star fashion, Yen insisted on continuing with the shoot without delay, adapting his movements while keeping the fight scenes just as explosive as ever. And it was not just Donnie Yen who faced unexpected injuries. Several stunt performers sustained bruises and minor fractures due to the sheer intensity of the action choreography. The film's commitment to practical, high-impact stunts meant that even with expert coordination, the risk factor was always present. Unlike Hollywood films that often rely on CGI-enhanced action, Raging Fire remained faithful to Hong Kong's action cinema roots, where real stunt work takes precedence. Many of the car chases, explosions, and hand-to-hand combat sequences were performed practically, with minimal digital effects used to enhance the impact. Another strange but fascinating fact involved the locations used for filming. Several of the high-octane sequences were shot on the real streets of Hong Kong, often in crowded areas where onlookers had no idea they were witnessing a film shoot. During one particular chase sequence, where Yao's gang is seen weaving through traffic on motorcycles while being pursued by police, some pedestrians mistakenly thought it was a real police chase and even attempted to move out of the way, only realizing afterward that they had unintentionally become part of the scene. Hong Kong's unpredictable weather also became an unexpected obstacle. Several key outdoor action scenes were scheduled during what should have been clear weather windows, but sudden torrential rains disrupted the schedule multiple times. Instead of rescheduling, Benny Chan and his cinematography team made an unconventional decision. They used the rain to their advantage. Some of the most visually striking moments in the film, particularly the nighttime. One of the most unusual aspects of the production was how closely some of the film's themes mirrored real-life events. The story, which revolves around corruption, betrayal, and former police officers turning against the system, unintentionally echoed several real-life cases of police corruption in Hong Kong that had been making headlines around the time of the film's release. Some audiences even speculated that Raging Fire was a thinly veiled commentary on the state of law enforcement and political unrest in the region, though the filmmakers never publicly confirmed such interpretations. Nicholas Tsay, embracing his role as the vengeful former cop, took his performance to an unexpectedly personal level. In one scene, where Yao confronts a corrupt official, the anger in Tsay's eyes is so visceral that some crew members later admitted they felt genuinely intimidated. Tsay later revealed in interviews that he had drawn from personal frustrations, not just with the character's backstory but with his own observations of injustice in the real world. His commitment to the role was so intense that after filming wrapped, he took a break from acting to recalibrate mentally. One of the most bizarre behind-the-scenes moments came when Donnie Yen decided to perform one of his fight sequences without any protective padding, simply because he wanted to push the authenticity of the moment. This particular scene, a brutal brawl set in a confined space, involved multiple full-contact strikes, to the point where his knuckles were bruised and swollen for days afterward. When asked why he took the risk, Yen simply laughed and said, "I wanted it to look real. And sometimes, real means getting hit." Even in its final stages, Raging Fire continued to defy expectations. Despite facing delays due to the pandemic, the film's box office success exceeded expectations, especially in China and Hong Kong, where audiences flocked to see what would become Benny Chan's final masterpiece. The film's emotional weight, combined with its high-intensity action, resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom saw it as not just a crime thriller, but a cinematic farewell to one of Hong Kong's greatest filmmakers. And so, the making of Raging Fire was filled with unexpected twists, real injuries, personal stakes, and a dedication to authenticity that few modern action films dare to match. From Donnie Yen and Nicholas Tsay pushing their physical limits, to onlookers mistaking high-speed chases for real-life police pursuits, to a storm that turned an action scene into a cinematic masterpiece, every moment behind the scenes was as intense and unpredictable as the film itself. In the end, Raging Fire is more than just a film. It is a testament to passion, resilience, and the enduring power of Hong Kong action cinema. It is the kind of film that burns itself into the memory, not just for what happens on screen, but for the remarkable journey it took to get there. There is something electrifying about Raging Fire, something that lingers beyond its explosive action sequences and gripping performances. It is a film that does not just unfold on the screen, it demands to be felt. Every bullet fired, every punch thrown, every moment of tension is not just about the spectacle, it is about what lies beneath. At its heart, Raging Fire is not merely a crime thriller or an action-packed blockbuster. It is a film woven with deeper themes, moral dilemmas, and a poignant emotional core. And as critics and audiences alike dissect its layers, the film's significant moments become far more than just cinematic set pieces. They become statements, echoes of the very questions that define justice, vengeance, and loyalty. One of the film's most compelling aspects is its dual protagonist structure, where Chung Sung-bong and Yao Kong-ngo serve as two sides of the same coin. The clash between them is not just physical, it is ideological. What happens when two men who once stood for the same ideals end up walking completely different paths? This question forms the backbone of the film, elevating its narrative from a standard cops and criminals chase into something far more complex. This conflict is established early in the film, but it truly takes shape when Yao and his men ambush the police convoy, a scene that, from a critical standpoint, is one of the film's most defining moments. What should have been a controlled operation spirals into chaos, as Yao's forces strike with surgical precision, overwhelming the police and leaving devastation in their wake. This is not just an action sequence, It is a statement. Yao is showing the world that he is no longer just a man seeking revenge. He is someone who believes in dismantling the very system that betrayed him. And what makes this moment so effective is not just its intensity, but the fact that the audience is forced to reckon with an uncomfortable truth. Yao's grievances are justified. From a critical perspective, this scene does something remarkable. It forces the viewer to question who the real villain is. The film does not portray Yao as a mindless antagonist, nor does it present Chung as an infallible hero. Instead, it asks, what happens when justice fails those who swore to uphold it? In this way, Raging Fire aligns itself with classic Hong Kong action cinema, where the line between law and lawlessness is often blurred. Another pivotal moment that stands out in both execution and thematic depth is the face-to-face confrontation between Chung and Yao in the abandoned warehouse. This is not a grand showdown, not the kind of sequence where guns do all the talking. Instead, it is quiet, tense, intimate, the kind of scene that crackles with unspoken history. The way it is framed is masterful. The setting, dark, enclosed, almost suffocating, mirrors the emotional weight between the two characters. They are trapped in this moment, just as they are trapped by their past decisions. Chung, always the man who followed the law no matter the cost, is faced with someone who has completely abandoned it, and yet there is still understanding in their eyes. What makes this scene even more impactful is the hesitation that lingers between them. Yao has every reason to pull the trigger. Chung has every reason to take him down. And yet, they both hold back, if only for a moment. In that single hesitation, the entire weight of their shared history crashes down upon them. It is a moment that reveals everything about their characters. Chung, the man who never let go of the past, and Yao, the man who let it consume him. Beyond these intense character moments, Raging Fire also explores the morality of justice in a system that is far from perfect. The film does not shy away from corruption within law enforcement, nor does it attempt to paint the police as a force of absolute righteousness. Instead, it presents a world where justice is often dictated by those in power, where loyalty is rewarded only until it is no longer convenient. This theme becomes painfully evident in Yao's backstory, which unfolds through flashbacks. When audiences see how his unit was betrayed, how they were thrown under the bus to protect corrupt officials, it is impossible not to sympathize with him. The anger that fuels his actions is not irrational. It is the result of a system that failed him. And what makes his journey so compelling is that he does not seek personal revenge alone. He wants to burn down the entire system that wronged him. This is where the film's thematic brilliance shines. Raging Fire is not just about violence. It is about what violence represents. Every act of brutality in the film is not just a moment of spectacle, but a manifestation of the anger, betrayal, and desperation that drives its characters. When Yao and his crew take down officials, they are not merely eliminating enemies, they are making a statement. When Chung fights back, he is not just trying to stop criminals, he is trying to hold on to the last remnants of his belief in the system. Another fascinating aspect of the film is how it plays with audience expectations. Traditional action films often build toward a clear resolution, a final battle where good triumphs over evil. But Raging Fire does something different. By the time the final confrontation between Chung and Yao arrives, the audience is no longer sure what victory even means. The last fight between them is nothing short of cinematic poetry, brutal, personal, and charged with emotions that words cannot express. The choreography is not just about who is faster, stronger, or better trained. It is about two men trying to prove something to themselves. The rawness of the combat, the sheer desperation in each movement, is not just about survival. It is about beliefs clashing in their most primal form. And yet, when the dust settles, when Yao is finally captured, the ending is not triumphant. There is no celebration. There is no moment of relief. Instead, there is only silence. This is where Raging Fire leaves its most haunting message. There are no true winners in a war like this. The system remains. The corruption lingers. Yao is defeated, but in a way, so is Chung. He has stopped the violence, but at what cost? The city is still broken. The truth about Yao's betrayal is out in the open, but it does not change what happened to him. And in Cheng's eyes, there is no satisfaction, only the realization that he has lost a part of himself in this battle. From a critical perspective, Raging Fire is a film that succeeds not just in technical execution, but in thematic depth. It blends pulse-pounding action with a thought-provoking narrative, forcing audiences to confront the uncomfortable truths about power, loyalty, and morality. It does not offer easy answers. It does not tell the audience how to feel. Instead, it challenges them to think, to question, to understand. And that is why Raging Fire is more than just an action film. It is a statement, a film that burns not just with bullets and fire, but with the kind of emotional intensity that lingers long after the final scene fades to black. The making of Raging Fire was more than just an ambitious action project. It was a passion-fueled endeavor that became the final masterpiece of director Benny Chan, a man whose influence on Hong Kong action cinema is impossible to overstate. Every scene, every shot, every moment of explosive intensity was crafted not just with technical precision but with heart, sweat, and a deep understanding of the genre's legacy. But behind the blistering gunfights, the high-speed chases, and the bruising martial arts duels, there was a journey. One filled with challenges, unexpected twists, and moments that defined the spirit of the production. At its core, Raging Fire was Benny Chan's last gift to Hong Kong cinema. Having previously helmed classics like New Police Story and Shaolin, Chan knew how to blend emotional depth with heart-pounding action. This project, however, came with a different kind of weight. Midway through production, tragedy struck. Benny Chan was diagnosed with cancer, and despite his relentless dedication to the film, he passed away before seeing it completed. What remained was not just a half-finished film, but a final statement from a director whose love for the genre was woven into every frame. Faced with the responsibility of finishing the film while staying true to Chan's vision, the cast and crew rallied together in a way rarely seen in film production. Donnie Yen, who not only starred as Chung but also served as an action director, stepped in to oversee key post-production elements, ensuring that every detail, from the editing rhythms to the sound design, matched the style and intent that Chan had envisioned. It was no longer just a film. It was a tribute, a farewell to a director who had spent his career shaping the world of action cinema. Filming the action sequences was nothing short of an endurance test. Hong Kong action films have long prided themselves on practical effects, intense stunt work, and minimal reliance on CGI, and Raging Fire took that philosophy to the extreme. Unlike Hollywood action films that often use computer-generated explosions and wire-enhanced fights, the team behind Raging Fire insisted on capturing as much real action as possible. This meant that every gunfight, car chase, and martial arts battle was executed with practical effects, real weapons training, and carefully choreographed fight sequences that pushed the actors and stunt performers to their limits. One of the most grueling sequences to shoot was the climactic final showdown between Donnie Yen and Nicholas Tsay, where their characters, Chung and Yao, engage in a brutal, emotionally charged fight. Rather than relying on stunt doubles, Yen and Tsay performed almost every move themselves, bringing a visceral energy to the battle that could only be achieved through real impact. The fight was so intense that Yen suffered a cracked rib, while Tsay walked away with bruised knuckles and a swollen wrist. And yet, neither actor allowed these injuries to halt production. Yen, ever the professional, refused to delay the shoot, adapting his movements to accommodate his injury while maintaining the relentless intensity the scene required. Tsay, on the other hand, embraced the pain, believing that the exhaustion and raw physicality would translate to the screen. The result? One of the most breathtaking, hard-hitting duels ever put to film, one that feels every bit as exhausting as it was to shoot. But it wasn't just the actors who endured extreme conditions. The entire crew had to battle the unpredictable weather and real-world obstacles of shooting in Hong Kong. Some of the most high-octane chase sequences were filmed in live traffic, requiring meticulous planning to avoid accidents. In one particularly chaotic scene where police vehicles pursue a gang of criminals through narrow, crowded city streets, the crew had to shut down entire blocks while coordinating hundreds of extras to create a sense of real-world chaos. One unexpected moment of behind-the-scenes hilarity came during a shootout sequence set in a cramped indoor space. One unexpected moment of behind-the-scenes hilarity came during a shootout sequence set in a cramped indoor space. A practical explosion was rigged to send a desk flying across the room, adding weight to the action. But during the first take, the explosion was too powerful, sending the desk smashing through an unintended section of the set and nearly knocking over the camera operator. The entire crew froze, expecting to hear a call for a reset, but instead, Donnie Yen, ever the improviser, used the unexpected destruction as part of his performance, continuing the scene without breaking character. The take was so intense and natural that the director decided to keep it in the final cut. For Nicholas Tsai, playing the complex and layered Yao Kong Ngo was one of the most challenging roles of his career. Having started his journey in Hong Kong cinema as a pop star before transitioning into acting, Tsai had taken on numerous action roles before, but Raging Fire demanded a different level of psychological depth. Yao is not just a villain. He is a former idealist turned ruthless mastermind, a man whose past as a police officer makes him a unique kind of adversary. To get into the mindset of his character, Tsai spent weeks training with former law enforcement officers, learning the mannerisms, tactical movements, and psychological pressures of being a cop in a system riddled with corruption. He also worked with stunt coordinators to ensure that his fight style felt realistic yet distinct from Donnie Yen's, emphasizing brutality over precision, emotion over technique. His goal was to make every punch, every movement feel like an extension of Yao's inner turmoil, and it shows. His performance is as magnetic as it is terrifying. One of the most fascinating elements of the film's production design was how it contrasted the visual worlds of Chung and Yao. The cinematography and color grading were intentionally structured to reflect their opposing ideologies. Chung's world is filmed with a crisp, clear realism, often using natural light and steady, controlled camera work to emphasize his firm, unwavering belief in the system. Yao's world, in contrast, is bathed in shadows, drenched in neon, and captured with more dynamic, unstable camera movement, reinforcing the idea that his perception of justice has become warped over time. Music also played a crucial role in shaping the film's atmosphere. Unlike traditional action scores that rely on bombastic orchestration, Raging Fire utilizes a mix of electronic pulses, deep percussive beats, and moody orchestral layers to create a sense of impending chaos. One of the most striking choices was how silence was used during key moments, especially in the final confrontation. Instead of an overwhelming score dictating the emotion, the filmmakers chose to let the sound of breath, impact, and raw tension fill the space, making the moment even more powerful. Beyond the set, the release of Raging Fire carried a heavy emotional weight for fans and industry veterans alike. The film became an unexpected box office success, particularly in China, where audiences resonated deeply with its themes of justice, betrayal, and personal sacrifice. More than that, it became a symbol of Benny Chan's lasting impact, a reminder of the kind of storytelling he championed throughout his career. One of the most touching tributes came during the film's premiere, where Donnie Yen and Nicholas Tsai took the stage to honor their late director. Yen, holding back emotion, spoke about how Raging Fire was not just a film, but a love letter to the legacy of Hong Kong action cinema, a genre that has influenced generations. Tsai, who had worked with Chan early in his career, expressed that he felt a deep responsibility to give everything he had to the role, knowing this was the last time Benny Chan's vision would be seen on screen. And that is what makes Raging Fire more than just a film. It is a testament to perseverance, passion, and the spirit of action cinema at its finest. Every shot fired, every bone-crushing hit, every moment of tension and emotion exists not just because of the script, but because of the dedication, sweat, and soul of everyone involved. It stands as a final chapter in Benny Chan's incredible career, but also as a beacon of what Hong Kong action films can still achieve: raw, powerful, and deeply unforgettable. The city of Hong Kong is not just a backdrop in Raging Fire. It is a living, breathing force that shapes the very essence of the film. The towering skyline, the neon-lit streets, the crowded alleyways, and the looming sense of chaos all contribute to an environment where justice and vengeance collide. Every frame of the film is infused with the raw energy of its setting, making it impossible to separate the story from the world in which it unfolds. It is a film that does not just use Hong Kong as a location. It integrates the city into its DNA, turning the streets into a battlefield, the darkness into a silent accomplice, and the neon reflections into the flickering remnants of morality. The setting is not simply a visual choice. It is a thematic anchor that reflects the internal conflicts of the characters. From the cold, structured interiors of police headquarters to the lawless, decaying hideouts of Yao Kong NGO and his men, every space carries meaning. The places where battles are fought are not random. They are extensions of the emotional war being waged between Chung Sungbong and his former brother-in-arms. One of the most striking aspects of the film's cinematography is how it contrasts these two opposing worlds. Chung's environment is depicted with controlled framing, strong lines, and clear, crisp lighting, emphasizing his rigid adherence to the law. He moves through spaces that feel calculated and precise, reflecting his belief in order and discipline. The police station is sterile, organized, almost too clean, a world where everything should, in theory, make sense. Yao's world, on the other hand, is chaotic, shadowed, unpredictable. The film bathes his hideouts in darker, more fragmented lighting, often using shifting neon glows and deep, intrusive shadows to mirror his fractured sense of justice. His spaces feel temporary, as if he is never truly at rest, always on the move, existing between the cracks of a system that cast him out. The rooms he occupies are cluttered, filled with remnants of the past, reflecting a mind haunted by betrayal and vengeance. The visual storytelling extends beyond lighting and location. It is embedded in the camera movement and composition. Throughout the film, action sequences are shot with a sense of immediacy and raw energy, using handheld cameras that shake and shift to immerse the audience directly into the chaos. When bullets fly, the camera does not simply observe, it reacts, darting through debris, mimicking the frenetic unpredictability of combat. This style ensures that every gunfight, every punch, every explosion is not just seen but felt. But there is a stark contrast when it comes to moments of emotional confrontation. When Chung and Yao finally come face to face, the camera becomes still, patient, unwavering, allowing their unspoken history to take center stage. In these moments, the cinematography serves a different purpose. It forces the audience to confront the weight of their choices, the consequences of their past. The close-up shots, the subtle shifts in focus, the lingering tension in the air, it all creates a visual echo of everything left unsaid between them. But there is a stark contrast when it comes to moments of emotional confrontation. When Chung and Yao finally come face to face, the camera becomes still, patient, unwavering, allowing their unspoken history to take center stage. In these moments, the cinematography serves a different purpose. It forces the audience to confront the weight of their choices, the consequences of their past. The close-up shots, the subtle shifts in focus, the lingering tension in the air, it all creates a visual echo of everything left unsaid between them. One of the most visually arresting locations in the film is the warehouse where Chung and Yao have their first physical confrontation. The choice of setting is deliberate, a place that is neither fully abandoned nor fully alive, much like their relationship. The lighting in this scene is a masterclass in tension building, with sharp contrasts between darkness and light, the flickering of neon reflecting off damp concrete, creating an almost dreamlike sense of unease. As they fight, shadows distort their forms, making them appear larger than life. Two figures locked in a battle that transcends the physical. Beyond action, the symbolism of the city's landscape plays a crucial role in shaping the film's themes. The constant presence of towering skyscrapers, casting long shadows over the streets, serves as a metaphor for the forces looming over Chung and Yao. The system they once believed in stands tall, seemingly unshaken, while they fight their personal war below, trapped in the ever-moving currents of the streets. There is a sense of inescapability, as if no matter how much they fight, the city remains indifferent, watching as yet another chapter of violence unfolds. Rain, too, becomes a powerful visual motif throughout the film. In key moments, it pours down in heavy sheets, washing over the characters as if attempting to cleanse them of their sins. But the rain does not bring renewal. It only adds to the weight they carry, a relentless force that makes their burdens feel even heavier. In the climactic battle, the downpour is relentless, turning the streets into a slick, reflective surface where blood and water mix, an almost poetic representation of the inescapable cycle of justice and vengeance. The use of color in Raging Fire is also worth noting. The film carefully employs a mix of blues, oranges, and deep reds to highlight the opposing forces at play. Blues dominate the scenes of law enforcement, symbolizing structure and control, while reds and oranges flare up in moments of violence, in the heat of battle, in the moments where emotions override reason. These bursts of color are not random. They are placed with intention, acting as visual cues that guide the audience through the shifting tides of power and conflict. One of the most haunting visual choices comes in the aftermath of the film's final battle. As Chung and Yao's war reaches its conclusion, the city continues on, its lights still flickering, its streets still filled with movement. There is no grand resolution, no triumphant moment of clarity, only the cold realization that the fight was never truly about winning or losing. The final shot lingers just long enough to let that truth settle in, allowing the weight of everything that transpired to sink into the audience. Even the way violence is framed in Raging Fire speaks to its thematic depth. Unlike many action films where gunfights and combat exist purely for spectacle, here, every punch carries history, every bullet carries consequence. The camera does not linger on excess, it cuts at just the right moment, allowing the impact to register without glorification. There is a sense that every action, every decision has an irreversible cost, a choice that cannot be undone. This meticulous approach ensures that the film remains grounded, visceral, and emotionally charged rather than just another action-packed thrill ride. Music and sound design also play a crucial role in building the film's atmosphere. The score, rather than being overwhelming or overly dramatic, is subtle, pulsating beneath the surface, heightening tension without dictating emotions. The soundscape of the city, the distant wail of sirens, the hum of neon signs, the rhythmic patter of rain on pavement, becomes its own character, adding layers to the setting without needing exposition. One of the most impressive feats of filmmaking in Raging Fire is how seamlessly it integrates action with storytelling. Unlike films where fights exist in isolation, here every action sequence is woven into the narrative, serving a purpose beyond spectacle. Whether it is a high-speed chase through the streets of Hong Kong or a brutal close-quarters brawl in a dimly lit alley, each moment is designed to advance the story, to reveal something about the characters, to drive home the weight of their choices. And so, as Raging Fire unfolds, it becomes clear that its setting is not just a backdrop, it is a force of its own, shaping the fates of its characters, reflecting their turmoil, and mirroring the relentless struggle between justice and vengeance. Through masterful cinematography, intentional lighting, and immersive sound design, the film transcends the boundaries of a standard action thriller, becoming something far more powerful. A story where every street, every shadow, every flickering neon light carries meaning. By the time the final frame fades to black, the city of Hong Kong remains, unchanged yet forever altered by the war that played out within its walls. And in that lingering moment, the audience is left with the unmistakable feeling that Raging Fire is not just about what happened. It is about where it happened, how it happened, and why it will happen again, in a world that never stops moving, never stops burning. The making of Raging Fire was a journey filled with dedication, physical endurance, and emotional weight, a production that demanded not just technical precision but a deep understanding of action filmmaking. What unfolded behind the scenes was as intense, unpredictable, and thrilling as the film itself. From the camaraderie among the cast, to unexpected injuries, to a deeply personal commitment to honoring the late director Benny Chan, every day on set carried with it stories of perseverance, passion, and the undeniable energy that defines Hong Kong action cinema. At the heart of the production was Donnie Yen, a man whose experience in both martial arts and action choreography made him a natural leader on set. But what made Raging Fire different was not just Yen's usual commitment to physical performance. It was the emotional depth that infused every fight scene, every chase, every intense stare-down between him and Nicholas Tsay. It was not just about making another action film. It was about crafting a final masterpiece for a legendary director, and the weight of that responsibility was something everyone on set felt. One of the most unexpected and fascinating elements of the film's production was how much improvisation played a role in shaping key moments. While action choreography in Hong Kong cinema is usually meticulously planned, Raging Fire had moments where the actors, particularly Donnie Yen and Nicholas Tsay, chose to react in the moment, letting their instincts guide the intensity of their fights. This was especially evident in the final confrontation between Chung and Yao, where the fight was choreographed but also had room for spontaneity, allowing real exhaustion, aggression, and even moments of hesitation to play out naturally. This physicality came at a cost. The fight scenes were so intense that Donnie Yen fractured a rib, but instead of halting production, he adjusted his movements and continued shooting. Nicholas Tsay, determined to match Yen's intensity, suffered multiple bruises and a swollen wrist, but refused to wear protective padding during key sequences because he wanted the hits to feel real. In one particularly brutal sequence, where Yao brutally takes down a group of police officers, Tsay went full force, making the take so shockingly raw that even the stunt team had to step back after filming, shaking off the impact. Despite the physical toll, there was an undeniable bond among the cast and crew. Behind the scenes, Yen and Tsay were constantly exchanging ideas, discussing not just fight choreography but the emotional undercurrents of their characters. Tsay, who had worked with Benny Chon before, was deeply committed to ensuring that his portrayal of Yao Kong Ngo was more than just a villain. He wanted to make him human, to bring depth to his rage and his pain. Yen, on the other hand, carried the responsibility of balancing Chung's unwavering sense of justice with the inner conflict of facing a man he once considered a brother. The on-set dynamic was a blend of professionalism and playful rivalry. Yen and Tsay often pushed each other to the limits, engaging in friendly challenges between takes. Who could land the most controlled strikes, who could endure the longest takes without breaking focus, who could react the quickest to last-minute choreography changes. Their energy was infectious, setting the tone for the rest of the cast and stunt team, ensuring that every scene carried an authentic weight and intensity. One of the biggest logistical challenges was shooting the high-speed chase sequences through the dense streets of Hong Kong. Unlike many films that rely on closed sets or CGI-enhanced car chases, Raging Fire filmed many of its stunt sequences in real urban environments, requiring split-second precision to avoid accidents. In one particularly dangerous sequence, where a stolen vehicle barrels through crowded streets, the crew had to coordinate hundreds of extras to ensure that every movement looked organic while remaining tightly controlled. Yet, despite all the planning, an unscripted moment of chaos occurred. During a motorcycle chase, a random pedestrian, unaware that filming was taking place, accidentally walked into the scene just as Nicholas Tsay's character sped past on his bike. Instead of cutting, Tsay improvised a sudden swerve, narrowly avoiding the person and continuing the chase without breaking character. The take was so seamless and authentic that the director decided to keep it in the final edit. Beyond the gritty realism of the action, there were also moments of unexpected humor behind the scenes. One of the biggest sources of light-hearted chaos came from Yen's obsession with food on set. Known for his love of Hong Kong street food, Yen frequently brought snacks to the crew, often sharing bowls of noodles or roasted meats between takes. Nicholas Tsay, equally passionate about food, started a friendly rivalry, trying to one-up Yen by bringing in different specialty dishes each day. The crew even joked that the real battle in Raging Fire wasn't between Chung and Yao. It was between Yen and Tsay competing to see who could introduce the best meals to set. The hardest day of filming, according to the crew, was the rain-soaked final battle. The scene, which takes place in a downpour amidst burning wreckage, was originally planned to use artificial rain, but an unexpected storm rolled in, flooding the set. Instead of postponing the shoot, the team embraced the real storm, using the naturally intense conditions to enhance the scene. The rain made every punch, every fall, every desperate exchange feel heavier, more primal, turning what was already an emotional fight into something that felt almost mythic. Even the explosions in the film carried behind-the-scenes surprises. In one of the biggest practical effects shots, where a massive detonation engulfs a police convoy, the blast radius ended up being larger than expected, sending debris flying dangerously close to where Donnie Yen and Nicholas Tsay were standing. The crew had seconds to react, and Yen, with his martial artist reflexes, instinctively grabbed Sei and pulled him out of the way. The explosion ended up looking even more dramatic than planned, and the unscripted reaction was so natural that it made it into the final cut despite the intense physical demands, the high-stakes stunts, and the emotional weight of honoring Benny Chan's legacy. The film wrapped with a sense of triumph. On the last day of filming, the entire crew gathered for an impromptu celebration, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and pride filling the air. Donnie Yen gave a heartfelt speech, recognizing the hard work of every stunt performer, camera operator, and crew member who had poured everything into making the film a reality. Nicholas Tsay, usually reserved off-camera, expressed his deep gratitude for being part of something so personal and powerful. The final touching moment came when the crew raised a tribute banner for Benny Chan, with his name written in bold calligraphy, a symbol of the respect and love that everyone involved had for him. It was a reminder that Raging Fire was not just an action film. It was a farewell, a love letter, a final salute to one of Hong Kong's greatest directors. By the time the film was released, audiences could feel the dedication in every frame, the blood, sweat, and passion that went into its making. And in the echoes of each explosion, in the weight of each hit, in the stillness of its final moments, Raging Fire was not just a movie. It was a testament to the resilience of Hong Kong action cinema, a story born not just from script pages, but from the unbreakable spirit of the people who brought it to life. There is a fire that burns throughout Raging Fire, one that is not just physical but deeply metaphorical. It is a film that does not just tell a story of justice and vengeance, it questions them, twists them, and forces the audience to reconsider what they truly mean. This is not a simple action movie about cops and criminals. It is about betrayal, morality, the weight of past decisions, and the consequences of ideals taken to their extremes. There is a fire that burns throughout Raging Fire, one that is not just physical but deeply metaphorical. It is a film that does not just tell a story of justice and vengeance, it questions them, twists them, and forces the audience to reconsider what they truly mean. This is not a simple action movie about cops and criminals. It is about betrayal, morality, the weight of past decisions, and the consequences of ideals taken to their extremes. It is about the fire that consumes, the fire that cleanses, and the fire that refuses to die. At its heart, the film is built upon two opposing forces, embodied by Chung Sung-bong and Yao Kong-ngo. They are not just characters, they are symbols. Chung represents unwavering duty, the kind of law that refuses to bend, even when it is flawed. Yao represents disillusionment, the kind of justice that arises when the system has failed and left a man with no other path. Their clash is not just one of physical strength but of ideologies, of beliefs that were once aligned but have since fractured into opposing truths. One of the most powerful themes in the film is the nature of justice. What does it mean to uphold the law when the law itself is flawed? Throughout the film, Chung is shown as a man who clings to structure, to discipline, to a world where rules matter. He believes in order, in consequences, in doing things the right way, even when that means letting go of things that are painful, even when it means standing alone. His rigidity is both his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. It is why he survives. It is also why he loses. Yao, on the other hand, is the embodiment of justice turned to vengeance. He is not simply a villain. He is a fallen hero, a man who once believed in the system but was destroyed by it. He was not born with hatred in his heart. It was forged by betrayal, shaped by the very institution he once swore to protect. And in this, the film presents a chilling question. What happens when the law fails those who follow it? Throughout the film, fire itself becomes a central symbol, a force that represents not just destruction but transformation. In every major turning point of the story, fire is present. When Yao first emerges as a threat, it is through an explosive ambush, a literal declaration of war against the system that cast him aside. When his revenge escalates, buildings burn, vehicles are engulfed in flames, and the city itself seems to smolder under the weight of his wrath. And when the final battle unfolds, it is in the midst of a storm, with fire and rain clashing against each other, a visual representation of the war between Chung and Yao. But fire in Raging Fire is not just about destruction. It also serves as a test, a trial that forces the characters to reveal who they truly are. Chung walks through fire again and again, emerging battered but unbroken. Yao embraces it, believing it to be his tool, his weapon. But in the end, even he cannot control it. The fire he started consumes not only his enemies but himself. Beyond justice and vengeance, the film also explores the weight of the past and how it shapes the present. Flashbacks show the brotherhood that once existed between Chung and Yao, moments where they fought alongside each other, where trust was absolute. But as the present unravels, those memories take on a different weight. They become haunting reminders of what was lost, of choices that cannot be undone. This theme is reinforced in the symbolism of light and shadow. In Chung's world, the lighting is often clear, structured, illuminating his face in sharp lines, reinforcing his clarity of purpose. He exists in the light, even when the world around him is dark. Yao, however, is almost always filmed in half-shadow, bathed in the neon glow of an artificial world that has no true justice. He is a man who has stepped into darkness but still carries traces of the man he once was. One of the most subtly powerful symbols in the film is the use of mirrors and reflections. In key moments, both Chung and Yao are framed against glass surfaces, their own reflections staring back at them. It is a visual reminder that they are not so different, that under different circumstances, they could have been each other. There is a particular scene where Yao, after eliminating one of his enemies, looks into a broken mirror. His reflection fractured, distorted, a literal representation of his psyche. He was once whole. Now he is pieces. The film also uses the setting itself as a symbol of decay and survival. The city of Hong Kong is alive, but it is also worn down, scarred by the battles that have played out within it. The streets are both home and battleground. The police stations, once symbols of order, now feel cold, sterile, more like war rooms than places of justice. Yao's hideouts are temporary, never permanent, because he no longer belongs anywhere. Every location in the film serves as an extension of its characters, reflecting their internal struggles in the physical world around them. And then there is the rain. If fire represents destruction, then rain represents attempts at cleansing, at washing away what has been burned. The final battle takes place in the midst of an overwhelming storm, with water and fire colliding in a chaotic dance, neither willing to give way to the other. The rain does not extinguish the flames immediately, just as the battle between Chung and Yao is not resolved in a single fight. But the rain persists. It is relentless. And in the end, it is not fire that lingers, but the aftermath of what remains when the flames are gone. One of the most powerful thematic elements in the film is its refusal to give easy answers. It does not paint Chung as the absolute hero or Yao as the absolute villain. It acknowledges that justice and vengeance are not always so different, that sometimes the only thing separating a hero from a villain is who gets to tell the story. By the end of Raging Fire, the audience is left with a lingering sense of unease. Yao is gone. The system remains. But has anything truly changed? Chung wins the battle, but at what cost? The city moves on. The fire dies down. But beneath the surface, the embers are still burning. The cycle of justice and vengeance, law and betrayal, it does not end. It simply waits for the next spark. And that is the final, most haunting theme of Raging Fire. Some wars never truly end. The craftsmanship behind Raging Fire is a testament to Hong Kong action filmmaking at its finest. Every frame, every sequence, and every sound was carefully constructed to pull the audience into the heart of the film's relentless tension. The action is visceral, the emotions raw, and the cinematography deeply immersive. This was not just another crime thriller. This was a carefully calibrated experience, one designed to make every bullet fired and every strike landed felt as much as seen. What sets Raging Fire apart is its commitment to practical, high-intensity action. While modern action films often rely on CGI-enhanced sequences and green-screen effects, this film stays true to the traditions of Hong Kong action cinema, where real stunts, precise fight choreography, and dynamic camera work bring the action to life. The film's use of long takes, handheld shots, and expertly placed slow-motion moments elevates the impact of its set pieces, making every sequence feel authentic, dangerous, and immediate. One of the most striking aspects of the film's visual approach is its contrast between controlled and chaotic camera work. Director Benny Chan and cinematographer Chan Chi-ing used deliberate framing choices to emphasize the thematic tension between order and disorder. When we see Chung Sung-bong, the camera is often stable, controlled, moving smoothly to emphasize his discipline and unwavering sense of justice. The shots are crisp, clean, often symmetrical, reinforcing his position as a man who adheres to structure. In contrast, whenever Yao Kong-ngo and his crew take center stage, the cinematography becomes more erratic, with the camera moving more freely, handheld shots intensifying the sense of unpredictability. The difference in visual language between these two characters subtly reinforces their opposing ideologies. Chung's world is structured, while Yao's world is wild and untamed, driven by rage and rebellion. One of the film's most visually compelling techniques is the use of color and lighting to reflect emotional and thematic shifts. The blues and grays of the police station represent cold professionalism, bureaucracy, and the rigid order of the law. Meanwhile, Yao's world is drenched in deep reds, oranges, and high-contrast shadows, mirroring his fiery vengeance, his willingness to burn everything down to prove a point. The final battle between Chung and Yao is a masterpiece of visual storytelling. Set against the backdrop of fire and rain, the sequence juxtaposes heat and cold, destruction and cleansing, turning their conflict into something almost mythical. Water and flames clash on screen, mirroring the war between control and chaos, and as the two men fight, their figures are illuminated by a flickering inferno, a reminder that one of them will not walk away from this. Another essential element in Raging Fire's filmmaking is its use of sound design and music to enhance the tension. Unlike action films that rely on an overbearing score to dictate emotion, Raging Fire often allows silence to speak for itself. Moments of gunfire are deafening, followed by stretches of quiet, allowing the weight of the violence to sink in. This approach makes the action sequences feel more intense and grounded, as every gunshot, every footstep, and every hit feels real. The fight sequences are choreographed with an emphasis on realism and weight, making every encounter feel personal and painful. Unlike the highly stylized action of Hollywood superhero films or even some of Donnie Yen's previous work, Raging Fire keeps the fights gritty and desperate. The camera doesn't just observe the action, it moves with it, ducking with every punch, shaking with every impact, ensuring that the audience doesn't just watch the fight but experiences it. A particularly impressive example of this technique is the warehouse fight between Chung and Yao, one of the most brutal hand-to-hand combat sequences in recent action cinema. The fight is filmed in long, uninterrupted takes, allowing the actors' performances to shine through without excessive cuts or edits. The blending of close-up and wide-angle shots ensures that every punch, kick, and counterattack is clearly visible, giving the audience a full view of the combatant's skill and exhaustion. Beyond cinematography and sound, editing plays a crucial role in shaping the film's breakneck pace. Benny Chan was known for his sharp, precise editing style, and even after his passing, the editing team ensured that Raging Fire stayed true to his vision. The cuts are strategic, never overwhelming the audience with excessive quick edits, but never lingering long enough to slow the momentum. The editing enhances the tension during standoffs, the speed of high-speed chases, and the impact of physical combat. One of the film's most powerful editing choices is how it weaves in flashbacks at crucial emotional moments. The past is not just shown, but intercut with present events, making the audience feel the weight of history between Chung and Yao as they collide in the present. The transition between past and present is often seamless, sometimes connected through match cuts, where an object, movement, or expression carries over from one timeline to another, reinforcing the inescapability of their past choices. While Raging Fire was undoubtedly a critical and cinematic success, its box office journey was a story in itself. In a time when Hong Kong cinema has struggled to regain its former dominance in the international market, Raging Fire proved that the legacy of classic action filmmaking is still alive and well. Released in China and Hong Kong amid fluctuating theater attendance due to the pandemic, the film defied expectations by grossing over $200 million globally, becoming one of the highest-grossing Hong Kong action films in recent years. One of the reasons for its success was Donnie Yen's international appeal. Having already gained massive recognition through films like Ip Man, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and John Wick, Chapter 4, Yen's presence brought in both longtime Hong Kong cinema fans and a newer global audience hungry for practical, high-impact action. The film also performed exceptionally well in China, where action films rooted in strong character drama and real-world themes tend to resonate with audiences. Many saw Raging Fire as not just an action spectacle but a reflection of deeper societal themes: loyalty, betrayal, and the cost of corruption. This emotional core helped the film break past the barriers of just being another cop thriller, turning it into a story that felt universally compelling. But beyond the numbers, Raging Fire was a landmark film for another reason. It was Benny Chan's swan song. His sudden passing during post-production made the film a tribute to his incredible career, and audiences, critics, and industry veterans alike honored his legacy through the film's success. Even Donnie Yen, who took an active role in ensuring the film's completion, referred to Raging Fire as one of the most personal projects of his career, not because of its action but because of the responsibility he felt to make sure Benny Chan's final vision was honored. As the film continued to dominate the Hong Kong and Chinese box office, international audiences also took notice. Action fans praised its raw intensity, film critics appreciated its emotional weight, and longtime Hong Kong cinema lovers recognized it as a return to the golden era of high-quality action storytelling. In the end, Raging Fire was more than just an action film with expertly crafted filmmaking techniques. It was a statement, a film that showed the world that Hong Kong action cinema is still as powerful as ever, that real stunts and physical performances will always have a place in cinema, and that stories about justice, revenge, and the weight of choices will always resonate. Through its masterful use of cinematography, sound, editing, and action choreography, the film not only captivated audiences but also cemented itself as one of the best action films of its era. And as the final credits rolled, there was no doubt, Raging Fire was not just a film, it was a legacy in motion. The power of Raging Fire does not just come from its electrifying action sequences or masterful cinematography, it is fueled by the passion and performances of its cast. Donnie Yen and Nicholas Tsay do not just play their characters, they embody them, breathing life into their roles with an intensity that resonates far beyond the screen. Their performances, along with the supporting cast, turn the film from a standard action thriller into a gripping, character-driven experience. But behind the scenes, their journey was just as fascinating as the battles they waged on screen. From the moment Donnie Yen was brought onto the project, it was clear that Raging Fire would be more than just another action film. Having built his career on physically demanding high-intensity roles, Yen was no stranger to the world of Hong Kong action cinema. But this time, it was not just about executing stunts, it was about crafting a deeply personal and emotionally charged performance. As Chung Sung-bong, he was not just portraying a law enforcer. He was bringing to life a character weighed down by duty, regret, and the ghosts of his past. For Yen, Raging Fire was special in another way. It was a tribute to Benny Chan, a director he deeply respected and admired. Chan's sudden passing meant that the film carried more weight than just being another blockbuster. It was a chance to honor a filmmaker who had dedicated his life to Hong Kong cinema. Yen, who stepped in to oversee aspects of post-production to ensure the film stayed true to Chan's vision, took this responsibility seriously. In interviews, he spoke about how much he felt the presence of Chan on set, saying, "Even though he wasn't there to finish the film, his vision guided us through every scene. We were making this movie for him." But the real standout of Raging Fire was not just Yen. It was Nicholas Tsay, who delivered a performance so intense and layered that it cemented him as one of Hong Kong's finest actors. Tsay's portrayal of Yao Kong Ngo was not just about being a villain. He had to embody the rage, the heartbreak, and the betrayal of a man who had once believed in justice but had been cast aside by the very system he swore to protect. To prepare for the role, Tsay underwent intense physical training, focusing on combat techniques that would make his fight scenes with Yen look not just choreographed but real. He wanted Yao's fighting style to feel different from Chung's, to be wild, aggressive, fueled by raw anger rather than controlled precision. The result was one of the most brutal and emotionally charged rivalries ever seen in Hong Kong cinema. Off-screen, Tsai was just as dedicated. He admitted in interviews that he spent months immersing himself in the character's mindset, trying to understand what would push a man like Yao to the edge. "I didn't want Yao to just be another bad guy," he explained. "I wanted the audience to feel his pain, to understand why he became this way." What made the dynamic between Yen and Tsai even more fascinating was the contrast in their personalities off-camera. Yen, who had spent decades as one of the world's most respected martial arts stars, approached the film with discipline and precision, carefully crafting every movement and moment. Tsai, on the other hand, was spontaneous, unfiltered, embracing the raw emotions of his character in a way that sometimes even surprised the crew. Their behind-the-scenes interactions were a mix of mutual respect and friendly competition, often pushing each other to go harder, fight smarter, and deliver the most intense scenes possible. One of the most revealing interviews came when Yen and Tsai discussed their fight scenes together. Yen recalled how, during one particularly intense sequence, Tsai refused to hold back, throwing full-force punches that left bruises. "I told him, 'This isn't a movie anymore, you're actually trying to kill me,'" Yen laughed. But rather than ask Tsai to tone it down, Yen welcomed the energy, using it to fuel his own performance. The final fight between Chung and Yao was not just acting, it was a battle of wills, captured in real time by a crew that could feel the electricity in the air. Beyond Yen and Tsai, Raging Fire featured a strong supporting cast that added depth and intensity to the story. Veteran actors Ray Louis and Simon Yam, both legends in Hong Kong cinema, brought their experience to the film, giving weight to the world of crime, law enforcement, and the moral gray areas in between. Their presence added to the film's sense of authenticity, reinforcing the idea that Raging Fire was not just an action spectacle. It was a story about men and the choices that define them. But what truly defined the film's success was how audiences responded. Even before its release, Raging Fire had built up a wave of anticipation, with fans eager to see Donnie Yen in his first major Hong Kong action film in years. When the film finally hit theaters, the response was explosive. Audiences were quick to praise the film's gritty, realistic action, calling it a return to form for Hong Kong action cinema. In an era where CGI-heavy Hollywood blockbusters often dominate the global stage, Raging Fire reminded viewers why practical stunts, well-choreographed fights, and emotionally driven storytelling will always have a place in cinema. One audience review described the experience perfectly. "The action in this movie isn't just action, it's storytelling. Every fight has meaning. Every moment between Yen and Tsai is filled with so much history that you can feel it in their fists. This isn't just a good action movie, it's one of the best in years." Many longtime fans of Hong Kong cinema saw Raging Fire as a revival of the industry's golden era, praising Benny Chan's tight direction, the chemistry between Yen and Tsai, and the film's refusal to rely on cheap gimmicks. Critics echoed similar sentiments, hailing the film as one of the best action films of the decade. Despite its massive success in China and Hong Kong, Raging Fire also found a global audience, particularly among fans of martial arts and action cinema. Western critics praised the film's masterful fight choreography and emotionally charged story, with some even calling it one of the best action films since John Wick. But perhaps the most emotional response came from those who saw the film as Benny Chan's final masterpiece. Many fans walked away from the film with a sense of nostalgia, a feeling that they had just witnessed something rare and special. Not just a great action film, but a love letter to Hong Kong cinema, to its past, present, and future. As the final credits rolled in theaters across the world, audiences didn't just applaud the film, they honored the legacy of the man who made it possible. And in that moment, Raging Fire became more than just a movie. It became a farewell, a celebration, and a reminder that true action cinema, cinema made with heart, skill, and passion, will never fade away. The echoes of Raging Fire do not fade when the final credits roll. Instead, they linger, like the smoldering embers of a battle fought not just with bullets and fists, but with ideals, betrayals, and the weight of history. What began as a pulse-pounding action thriller became something much deeper, a film that honors a legacy, revives a genre, and reminds us why Hong Kong action cinema still has the power to shake audiences to their core. At its heart, Raging Fire was always about two men, two paths, and one inevitable collision. Chung Sung-bong and Yao Kong-ngo were never simply hero and villain. And in that moment, Raging Fire became more than just a movie. It became a farewell, a celebration, and a reminder that true action cinema, cinema made with heart, skill, and passion, will never fade away. The echoes of Raging Fire do not fade when the final credits roll. Instead, they linger, like the smoldering embers of a battle fought not just with bullets and fists, but with ideals, betrayals, and the weight of history. What began as a pulse-pounding action thriller became something much deeper, a film that honors a legacy, revives a genre, and reminds us why Hong Kong action cinema still has the power to shake audiences to their core. At its heart, Raging Fire was always about two men, two paths, and one inevitable collision. Chung Sung-bong and Yao Kong-ngo were never simply hero and villain. They were reflections of each other, shaped by the same system, but molded by opposing truths. Their war was one of justice versus vengeance, law versus loyalty, but the beauty of the film was in its refusal to give us easy answers. Did Chung truly win? Did Yao truly lose? Or were they both casualties of a system that never cared for either of them? These are the questions that make Raging Fire endure beyond the screen. But this film was not just about storytelling, it was a technical and cinematic triumph. From its breathtaking cinematography to its visceral, bone-crunching action sequences, every frame was meticulously crafted to draw the audience into the heart of the storm. The use of fire, rain, and shifting light turned every fight into more than just combat. It became a visual metaphor for the characters' internal struggles. And with Donnie Yen and Nicholas Tsay delivering some of the finest performances of their careers, every punch thrown carried decades of pain, history, and conflict. Behind the scenes, Raging Fire was a production filled with triumphs, challenges, and emotional weight. From the real-life injuries sustained during the fight sequences to the relentless dedication of the cast and crew, every moment of this film was crafted with heart and sweat. And of course, at its core, it was a tribute, a farewell to the legendary Benny Chan, whose passion for Hong Kong action cinema shaped the film even after his passing. This was his final masterpiece, his last battle cry in a career dedicated to storytelling through action. At the box office, Raging Fire was a testament to the undying love for Hong Kong action films, proving that audiences still crave real, high-stakes, practical action cinema. It resonated not only in China and Hong Kong but across the world, where action lovers found a film that reminded them why fight choreography, storytelling, and emotional weight matter in action filmmaking. And in the end, perhaps that is the true legacy of Raging Fire. It is a film that does not just entertain, but demands to be felt. It burns, it scars, it lingers. And it proves that in the right hands, action is not just spectacle, it is art. If you have enjoyed this deep dive into Raging Fire, be sure to subscribe for more in-depth movie analysis, behind-the-scenes insights, and explorations of the best films from around the world. Let's continue celebrating cinema together, because great films, just like Raging Fire, are meant to be experienced, shared, and remembered. Until next time, keep watching, keep exploring, and never stop chasing the fire.